guys to the third episode of the Keeping It Real with Reggie and Ruhi podcast. I'm Reggie Bird, and I've got my colleague Ruhi Ali Khan.
Hello, guys. How are you?
Yeah, so we wanted to talk about our meeting that we had. It was with the Contra Costa Association of Realtors, and it was what they call it, the big meeting.
Yeah, it's their annual big meeting where they get like the vice president of CAR, which is California Association of Realtors, and they get their legal counsel out, 𝐬𝐫𝐞, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of really good information. We were each there for our own specific interests, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But I know you and I share this.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone in the industry should. But, sad to say the auditorium had quite a few realtors and agents in there, but this piece of information that Reggie and I were there for seemed to be not on everyone's radar, which kind of baffled me. I don't know how you felt about that.
I'm very baffled by it, but the main thing that's going on right now is basically the buyer agent's model is looking to be totally disrupted by two recent lawsuits. One, I believe, is in Missouri, which is going on right now. I believe it's Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
It is okay. And then there's another one that's going to be in Illinois that's going to be in a few months. And basically what's going on is there's a claim of antitrust, and that the model that we have in which realtors who list the property share a portion of their commission with the buyer's agent as a means of marketing the property. And it's being claimed by these defendants in the suit,
The plaintiffs,
rather, that this is antitrust.
Now, what is antitrust? Antitrust is something that's not necessarily disclosed, or something that they've got no choice in the matter. And so that's what I always thought antitrust was. What's your take on it? What do you?
Yeah, that's the same thing that I gather from it, and that's what these plaintiffs are claiming, that this system, and actually some of the words that are being used during this trial is they've called NAR system like a cartel and everything.
Okay, but here's what kills me. Okay, I mean, let's be real. It's been 10 years since these transactions have happened. These are not recent transactions. So you're very happy, Mr. Seller, when you sold your property and you made your money. And are you now saying that you didn't know that the agent who brought you the offer was getting paid? Like, I don't know. Call me naive or call me, whatever. But to me, that's a little suspect. Like, it's like, oh, hold on. What? So I thought I was paying you, Reggie, the 5%. And are you telling me you gave half of that 5% to the buyer's agent? Like, I'm sorry. Obviously. And when you sign a listing agreement for anyone who sells a property, we specifically go through that listing agreement. And I say, here's the 5% or the 6%, whatever you're charging, right? There's no set amount. And I'm charging you this amount. And then out of that amount, I'm giving 2.5% or 3%, depending on whatever we've decided on, to the buyer's agent. The buyer's agent is going to work to help you bring you offers. Now, sometimes, and tell me if you do this, but what I've done, and I've been in the business for 30 years, and I've done this at least, I'm going to say the last 15 years, which is, should I bring you the buyer myself, I will always tell you that I'm bringing you the buyer, but I won't charge you the full 5 or 5.5%. Right. I'm going to lower it to 4.5%. And I write that in with pen, and I explain it to my sellers. So now you're initialing all of this. And so this lawsuit, they're claiming that they didn't know that. They didn't know that you're paying half of your commission.
Well,
to
they
the
know
other
it.
agent.
They clearly know it. And I can't speak for other states, but it's very clear and spelled out in the California contracts. And, quite honestly, I don't think that they're trying to say that they didn't know that. I think what they're trying to say is they were coerced into doing that because it's a system that's fixed. Now, I guess if you want to play devil's advocate, it is something that is a very common practice. Everything is negotiable, and that's very clear in all the wording in all the documents, but it is a very common practice. Be remiss to say that it's not a common practice, but I'm always curious about motive and money. And at the end of the day, there's a lot of lawyers that are involved in this. What do you think that the lawyers' motives are that are getting this all started?
Well, I want to back up a little bit. First of all, coerced, and that word is very strong. So our job, you hiring us as a salesperson or hiring you or me as a salesperson, our job is to sell the property, right? And the reality is, I've had clients who've come to me and said, Rui, can we sell, I only want to offer 0.5% to the buyer's agent. So could you do it for a full 3%, 2.5% to you and 0.5% to the other agent? And I always say, I could do whatever you want. Nothing is set in stone. But let me tell you what happens. When I put it on the MLS, the buyer's agents get to see everything on the MLS. They get to see, 2.5%, 0.5%, whatever. How do you compare it to somebody else who's offering 2.5% and 0.5%? And you're only offering 0.5%. So essentially, the buyer's agent's job is to tag team with the listing agent to help sell your house.
That's part of why the plaintiffs have the issue in this suit, is because they feel as though what's happening is that the buyer's agents are not going to be fair in showing all the properties, and will handpick and cherry pick properties to show based upon how much commission they're going to make.
Okay, but here's the deal, right? And the reality is that, okay, you're on Upwork or you're on Fiverr or you're on one of these sites where you've got different jobs and you can hire someone to do a project for you. As someone who is hiring someone, I'm going to cherry pick someone who's charging me less than someone who's charging me the most. If they have the same skills as everybody else, why would I want to spend more money?
It's called shopping around, right?
You're shopping around. So as an agent, yes, you have fiduciary duties to your buyers.
To show them all the available properties.
Yes, but now there's what's called, and again, neither of us are attorneys, but I am a broker and I know that there is an implied contract. Mm-hmm. So as your agent, if you're a buyer, I have an implied contract with you that I'm going to act, in your best fiduciary duty. And I'm going to show you everything out there. But, at the end of the day,
there's human nature.
You're a human, right? And we're not all cut from the same cloth. I mean, the reality is there are going to be people who, why do you offer bonuses in the confidential remarks? Why do you offer, hey, if we get an offer by, November the 30th or before Thanksgiving, we're going to offer a $5,000 bonus. Right? Like, there's a lot of things in there. So obviously if there's a bonus, people want you to show your property even more. And so to say, it's not going to be a level playing field, then you might as well hire a bunch of robots to do the job. You just show every single property. So, I mean, to me, I don't like the word coercion. I don't think that is something that, most realtors, we strongly suggest that you do offer a better commission or offer something that's more of the median commission that's out there. Again, nothing's set in stone, but...
And let's be real. I mean, everybody has Zillow, Trulia, Redfin, everything. They have access to everything anyway. Mm-hmm. So you can't cherry pick properties even if you wanted to. If there's a property they want to see and the listing agent is only offering $1, if they want to see it and they want to buy it, they're going to buy it.
They're going to buy it.
With or without you.
Yeah. But here's the reality, okay? So what's happening right now is this situation, there's a chance that buyers, brokers are going to go away, right?
There is a chance.
There's a chance, and it's going to be the listing agent who's going to do both, be the seller's agent and the buyer's agent. I have a huge problem with that because just like we're all human, I mean, you've got 3 children. Are you going to love all 3 children? I hope you love all 3 children the same, right? But how do you say, oh,
who do you work for?
Who do you work for? Do you work for the seller or do you work for the buyer? Right? And and the seller saying something, and now I'm like tippy-toeing because the buyer should know this, but I don't have the permission to share it. Like, it's just a tangled web and kind of a mess.
It's a tangled web. So the one gentleman that was speaking was 𝐦𝐨𝐫𝐞. He had mentioned that there's a few ways that this could end up. One could be that they just NAR comes out on top, and then this is just a non-issue. Another thing could be that, hey, they lose, but then they'll probably appeal, which will be just a long, drawn-out process for years. Could be another situation where they can lose, and while they're going through the appeals, the judge could actually start some new rules, which could even include getting rid of buyer agency, not buyer agency, but the whole thing where we can share our commission. That could be actually gotten rid of while they're still appealing. Or it could be just that, hey, they just lose straight up and they can't appeal, and the listing agent can't share their commission anymore.
Yeah, I mean,
he seemed like he felt like it was very unlikely that would happen. At best, if NAR lost, then there would be an appeal, and it would be a long, drawn-out process for years.
It would be, but one thing I always tell like my agents, and I try to practice myself, which is if I'm working with a buyer, I want to do a buyer's representation agreement, and let me tell you why. And anyone out there who is either a buyer or who is an agent, honestly, real estate, purchasing a home for yourself to live in or investment property is the biggest purchase you will make in your lifetime. And you want to be represented. You want someone who's going to be able to help you write the contract, help you do your due diligence, help look out for you and be like, okay, listen, I personally am not sure about this street because it's got like 20 million cars on it. I've kind of been looking at how the condition of some of these other homes on your street look like. I'm not sure this would be the best investment for you, right?
Right.
There's so much value to having a buyer's broker, a buyer's agent, and, saying, hey, I am loyal to you. I'm going to sign this document which says that you are my broker or my representation. You're going to look out for my best interest when I'm purchasing this property. You are going to go through the contract and you're going to write it in a way where it's strong. It represents me without giving away everything. And you're going to help me go through all the disclosures and anything that I should look out for. Whether you've bought one house or you buy 10 houses, you always want to be represented. Again, this is my opinion because this is the largest purchase of your life. You don't want to look back and be like, you know what? I wasn't represented. I don't have any documentation. I can't call someone and ask for tax documents. I can't call someone and ask them, hey, this is what's happening and can you help me? And do you remember anything on the disclosures about this? You need to be represented. So with a buyer's agency agreement, there's a couple of things, right? Either you are, as a buyer, if there's no compensation being offered, then you might have to pay your, buyer broker some sort of compensation, like a percentage or a fixed dollar amount, whatever you agree on. Or you're essentially saying that if this property that's on the MLS isn't offering me this money, then I will. But most of the time, MLS, you do have something being offered to them. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I just want to, for everybody that's out there, I want to be clear. If these lawyers and these plaintiffs get what they want, what's going to happen is that if you're a buyer and you want to be represented by an agent, you will have to pay out of your pocket.
No, not 100% necessarily, right? Like, you might, because I don't think they can come up with a law and say, oh, you're not putting anything out there for a buyer's broker, right? Or is that what they're saying?
That's what they're trying to make. They actually want to make that potentially like a violation to.
Okay, that's going to be a hot mess, right? A hot mess if I'm now, instead of paying my broker...
Almost like a RESPA violation type thing. Almost like it's a kickback,
maybe I was a little unclear on it. But to me, if that's something that happens and they decide that...
Well, I think it's up in the air, right?
Yeah.
I think that's ultimately what they want to see happen. And I could be wrong, right? All this stuff is so new and it's ever changing, like like right now, they're literally right now as we speak having, you know, these these actual conversations, these court cases. Yeah. So, you know, maybe it won't go that far. Maybe they'll just, you know, make some restrictions on it. We don't know.
We don't know. And guys, I'll tell you one thing. You know, if you're working with a realtor, you are a realtor. I know a lot of you don't know what's going on.
A lot of realtors don't even know.
Yeah.
We're following it really heavy because we want to make sure that you have this information and you're empowered as the consumers out there.
Yeah, and in today's meeting was hilarious because a lot of people were like, whatever. They weren't really listening. And I'm thinking, okay, I would listen if you're planning on being in the business in the next 3 to 5 years, because this will affect you whether you are a buyer, a seller, a realtor, a broker, anyone in the industry. This is going to affect you. So you better pay attention, because this has the potential of
to affect the whole economy.
The whole economy and your whole life. You better look for another job if you're a buyer's agent, right? Because it can affect your whole life. But what I'm talking about, and thank you for stepping in there, is what I'm talking about is a buyer's broker agency. If you are a realtor right now or you're a buyer, put your buyer's broker agency in place. You don't need it right now. Nothing's happened, but it's a good practice to have because, one, you are committed to your buyer. Your buyer is committed to you, and you're very clear on that document of what your obligations as a buyer broker are to your buyer. And so for me, when I'm meeting with someone, you know, it's very, very difficult to represent every buyer who wants me to represent them, because I'm a broker, I run a company, I've got listings. So for me, if I'm working with a buyer, I want to make sure that they understand that I'm going to put in a lot of time and then a lot of effort, and I'm going to represent them the best representation that they can get. So it's very, very important to be able to sit and have that one-on-one conversation and go through that buyer's broker paperwork and show them, these are the things that I'm going to do.
And it spells everything out. So everybody knows what everybody's duties are and what everybody's responsibilities are.
100%. And I mean, it's going to be really interesting. I'm really hoping that half our industry doesn't go away.
It would be interesting if but that would just mean that we would have to pivot. You know, things change and we would have to pivot. I think that would really make it even harder for people to get home, especially first-time home buyers, because you're not going to, you know, if agents can't get paid, you're going to have to go directly to the listing agent. And what if you have that's what people, especially first-time home buyers, come to us as realtors for, to have that guidance. If you've never bought a house before, you don't know what to do, what questions to ask, what to look for.
Yeah, or there's a lot of investors. So recently, you know, I'm working with my investor clients, and I sold their investment property, and now we were going to do a 1031 exchange. We sold it for $2.5 million, and they wanted to buy 2 properties that, you know, for their exchange properties, and they needed to buy them within a certain number of days. They needed to identify within a certain number of days. And honestly, you don't know those nuances. And even if you've done this over and over again, when you're working with a buyer's agent, we're able to help kind of put the whole puzzle together with the exchange company, with the title company, knowing the timeline. So whether you're a first-time buyer or you're an experienced investor, it's very, very prudent to have representation. It's like kind of going on trial and saying, I don't need an attorney. You know, I'm going to represent myself because I know the cases and the facts of my case better than anybody else. I think that's a mistake.
Right.
I
agree.
So now, not to cut this short, this is really, really important stuff. But some of the other stuff that we got to learn about today, which was amazing, as usual, was learning about some of the new laws that are coming into play. And, you know, some of them, I loved the law about the potential ADUs, you know.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fact that you maybe in the future will be able to sell your ADU separately as a separate residence, which would be huge.
Yeah, I mean, that's really premature, but that got me really excited because I was like, wait, what? I don't have an ADU, but I'd build an ADU and then I could sell it separately. And then essentially you're selling it as a condo. And that's from the state. Now, your local, HOA and all these things, if you have an HOA, have to approve it. But one of the things that Gov impressed upon was that if the state, wants it to happen, which they do, it will. So once we get more information on this, we're going to share it with you. If you, anytime.
Do you think everybody knows what an ADU is?
No, maybe not. Okay, let's back up. What's an ADU, Reggie?
It's a
accessory
dwelling unit. Yes. I didn't know the A. I knew the dwelling unit, but
you scared me. I was like, uh-oh. Yeah, it's an accessory dwelling unit. Now, you could have an ADU attached to your house. You could have a separate structure. And someone in the meeting asked, hey, what if it's like attached to your house and it's sharing a wall? He goes, well, that's a condominium. You could still sell it. I'm like, wow, like this, like all these, little alarms went off in my head because I was like, this is awesome. Like, this is huge, especially for people who are thinking about retiring and they have all this land and all this stuff and they're deciding, hey, you know what? I'd like to sell my house, but I really don't want to sell my house because I still want to live in California, but I'm thinking of moving to Idaho or wherever. I mean, there's just so many things. So what I was saying is, as we get more information, we will share it with you. But know this, that at any time, whether it's this or anything else we've discussed in our previous podcast or our future podcasts, you have our contact information so we can answer things specific to you. Always feel free to reach out to myself or Reggie and we will, answer your questions for you.
Yes, all my social media handles are at Reggie Bird Jr. Any social media that you go on, I have the same handle all across the board, and I'm sure
mine's just 𝐒𝐨𝐫𝐞 Real Estate, and all of our handles are going to be linked below. So again, you call Reggie, you deal with Reggie and me, and you call me, you deal with me or Reggie. So
and we're all artistry.
We're all artistry. So we are here to answer your questions. But there are some other really cool things, right, that he was talking about, other laws.
Yeah, especially regarding like the different things regarding, those of you out there who are either aspiring or current landlords, which will make things, the waters are getting a little bit more murky. So I don't want to go into a lot of the details with that because, we have to brush up on these things ourselves. But just to say that there's going to be a lot of new rules that are going to open up a lot of landlords into more exposure for litigation and liability and all types of things. So if you don't have someone that's helping you with your property management, that could be an issue.
Yeah, it's honestly, and we have taken on, doing property management, and honestly, the minute I heard those, I started getting a little bit nervous, and I'm like, okay, you know what? It's time for us to brush up on some of these things. Now, these are new laws that are going to come into effect, and honestly, it's going to make it really, really murky. That's the water's murky, as Reggie said, which is nice because honestly, you need someone to represent you. I would, if I was a landlord and had tenants and all these different laws, because frankly, I just couldn't wrap my head around it if I did something else besides real estate.
Right, because, we do this full time, but if you own multiple properties and you're working a full-time job, or even if it's a part-time job, you don't want to have to deal with that all the time, and knowing all the nuances of what you can and what you can't do, when you can evict somebody, when you can evict someone, worried about potential discrimination, and you don't even realize that somebody could claim discrimination. So there's a lot.
Well, so here's a little golden nugget, and this is ironic because I had this conversation with a client earlier today. He was telling me about one of his clients who's a Section 8 client who he wasn't aware of some of the rules, and he said, next time I'm not going to let lease out to a Section 8 person. Well, guess what, friend? I'm not going to call you out on this podcast, but laws are changing. You have no choice. If they've got the same qualification as any other tenant that's applying, then you can't discriminate against Section 8.
8.
So that is super, super scary. And if you have tenants that are over 12 months, in your property, their rights have just all of a sudden exploded. They've got a lot more rights. So again, these are just small things. We can talk to you individually, case by case. But if you don't have someone property managing, I would highly recommend you do reach out to us. Like Reggie said, we do property management, and honestly, it's a write-off for you and a little bit more of a headache for us. But at least we will work to keep you protected as best as we can, right?
Yeah, of course. That's what we do.
Yeah.
All right, so I think that kind of sums up everything that we had to talk about today. As you hear what if you have any questions for us or anything that you would like us to discuss on the podcast, feel free to put your messages in the comments or message us directly. That helps us help you with any questions that you have or topics that you would like us to go over.
Yeah, guys, and we would love, we've started this venture together, and we would love your feedback. We would love your reviews. And we'd love for you to subscribe and keep on listening. And like Reggie said, if there's anything specific you want to talk about or hear about in the real estate industry, in the wealth building industry, remodeling, let us know, because we plan on having some great guests on our show, and we would love to cater it to what you want to hear.
Yes, definitely.
That's it for now.
All right. Take care, everyone. We're signing off.